Hey Lawn Care Nation, in this video we're going to talk about this guy, the Exmark Commercial 21 X Series mower, coming up. So hey Lawn Care Nation, in this video I'm going to be doing a basic debriefing and sharing my initial thoughts after using this Exmark Commercial 21-inch mower for the past couple of months. Now before I do that, I just want to put out a disclaimer there so that we're up front and let you guys know that Exmark did send me this mower completely free of charge for me to use it, review it, and to share my thoughts on. Now with that being said, the opinions and my thoughts that I'll be sharing in this video are strictly my own. Exmark doesn't know that I'm making this particular video, and they don't know what I'm going to be talking about. So let's get into it. Okay, so originally when I partnered up with Exmark, it was to strictly do some content and some videos to do a review and stuff on the new 32-inch Star stand-on mower. But I asked them if it would be possible for them to send me a 21-inch commercial X Series mower as well, and explained to them because I had always used the Honda HRC216 for the past 13 years in my lawn care business, and I had been experiencing a bunch of the same issues with the previous two versions of that mower that I bought 2 years apart. And it was quite frustrating to use the Honda in the last few years, even with brand new mowers experiencing the same issues over and over again. So I was really keen the last couple of years to look for some other alternatives to the Honda, and this was one that kept coming up every time I would ask you guys and posting on Instagram and stuff about what mowers I should be looking at. The Exmark Commercial 21-inch series was one that just kept coming up over and over and over again as a suggestion by you guys as a fantastic mower to use. So right off the bat, the question that everybody has been asking is, how is the cut quality versus the Honda? So I would say that the cut quality of this particular machine is equal to the Honda HRC216. The Exmark does very, very well. The cut quality is fantastic, and it actually bags really, really nicely. It'll pack this bag really, really tightly. So much so that when you go to dump the bag, it will require a good shaking to get to all of those clippings loose, even though the bag itself is completely wide open on the end. This machine will pack the clippings so tightly in there that when you go to dump them, sometimes they just stay in there like a big hay cube, and you gotta really, really shake them to get the clippings to fall out. Now this mower also is capable of mulching, and it comes with an included mulch plug that slips into the side there after you remove the bag. But I haven't had a chance to use this mower in mulching applications or even in very wet conditions yet. So one of the things I really like about this mower is that cast aluminum deck. I think that here mowing in the Pacific Northwest, that will add to the longevity of this machine. One of the biggest complaints I have about the Honda is that steel deck, and you know, it does rust out over time just having to mow in these really tough wet conditions year after year. Now initially I thought that this mower would be a lot lighter because of that cast aluminum deck, and it is a little bit lighter. It's about 10 pounds give or take lighter than the Honda HRC216, but it does actually make a pretty large difference in my opinion. I feel like this mower is a lot lighter than the 10 pounds that it actually is, only lighter than the Honda, particularly in the front end and with the self-propel system on this particular unit. Now, talking about the self-propel, on this unit, it's a single speed. It's not adjustable like the Honda. So basically, it just depends on how much you're squeezing this bail here that gets that transmission going. And it is very, very fast. This will pull you up a hill if you're having trouble walking up a slope or a hill that you're mowing. And even if you're feeling a bit sluggish towards the end of the day, this will get get you moving. You know, in comparison with the Honda, with my experience, is that during the first year it seems pretty well and pretty good, but over time it starts to wear out pretty quickly, and you know, a year or two into it, and you can almost push the mower faster than using the self-propel on those Hondas. So we'll see how this one holds up over time, but right now it's just you know, one of my favorite features is that the self-propel, it goes. There's no lag or anything on it. It just really hauls. Now, one of the other really nice features that I like about this machine compared to the Honda is the wheel adjustment on the rear. It's a single system where there's a little pull tab or hook here that you pull up, and it controls both of the rear wheels, and there's a series of notches there on the rear wheel, and a whole measurement system on this side, so you can just pull up, lift up the mower and lock it in place. If you want to raise it down, yeah, just lift it up, lower it down, and it does both sides at the same time. Now, in contrast with the front of the mower, you have to actually individually take out the wheels to adjust the height. So there's another little pull tab here that you pull up on, and the wheel actually pulls off, and you can see a series of holes that correspond with different heights, and then you find the height that you want, lift up on the tab and slide it back in, and it's locked in place. So not a big deal as far as you know, how quick it takes. It is still, you know, pretty quick, and there's no parts to wear out like the Honda with those four corners where you adjust, and that little selector in between those tabs can wear out over time and cause an uneven or unbalanced cut. With this, there's no you know, issues with parts wearing out, but there is a downside to this system as well, and that's that you have to physically touch the wheels or the tires in the front to remove them. And you know, not a big issue, but if you're going over yards that may have dog waste or things on them that get on the tires, then that means you know, you potentially have to be handling these tires you know, after they might be have some debris on them. So in that sense, I do like the other style better, the Honda style, where you don't have to touch, or the rear style on this. I actually wish that they had the same rear height adjustment on the front as well, so that you could do both wheels with just a single lever. I think that would be a fantastic addition to this mower. But all in all, this is a simple system with not much to go wrong with it. The next thing on my list of things that I really like about this particular mower is the gas tank, or the fuel tank on this unit. It's 1 gallon, absolutely huge, and I love that about this unit. You know, you can fill it up in the morning and you can go all day long with this mowing without having to stop to refuel. So I think that is really fantastic, and sometimes I can even get, depending on you know, how many houses I'm using this mower for, I can get a couple of days between actually refilling this particular fuel tank being so large. Now, one of the biggest differences between this Exmark mower and the Honda, especially after using the Honda for 13 seasons, is the handle design. So on this particular mower, you know, it's a pretty straightforward, basic lawn mower handle. There's not much to it. You have your blade brake clutch system here. You engage it by pushing down on that tab to release this lever. You would pull this lever, and that starts the blades turning. And then to use the self-propel, you're reaching under and you're pulling up on this bale wire here, and the more you squeeze, the faster you go. So, you know, a pretty simple design, but if you notice, as I'm holding the mower here and the bend in my wrist here, this was the biggest thing to get used to with this particular mower, was that strain on this part of my wrist. It almost feels like carpal tunnel or something like that in this area, and particularly when you are trying to squeeze the lever, because the speed is not adjustable and you're adjusting the speed by squeezing the particular lever here. So there's a lot of times where you can't go full blast, which would be the most comfortable, because you could have the lever completely pulled up and then have your hands in a more comfortable position. But with me, I've got small hands, which means my fingers are pretty small, and that means my hand has to tend to curl over the edge here to hold that bale at a more comfortable, slower speed for me to keep up with. And I found that sometimes I'll even try an underhand approach with one of my hands. So I'll have this handle like this and this one like this, so that I can go in this position just to relieve the strain off my wrist here. So that was the biggest thing to get used to using this more after using the Honda. With the Hondas, the handle kind of curves up, so your hands are in this sort of position, and you can squeeze the levers up here for the self-propel. So this one sort of just changes it from that sort of side position that you'd be using it on to that over position. And normally with the push mower wouldn't be such a big deal, but with the self-propel being on the bottom, again, you can see my reach has to curve over, and it causes a bit of strain here. So that took the longest to get used to. Once that sort of muscle memory built up, it hasn't been such a big deal ever since. But the first few days, first few weeks, that was my biggest struggle with this particular mower, was just getting used to that hand position, like I say, after using the Honda for 13 years. But now, not so much of a big issue. Occasionally, still get some strain here, but it's getting better and better the more I use it. So this unit features the Kawasaki Commercial FJ180V. So far, so good in the conditions that I've been mowing. Like I said, it's been mainly dry conditions, but even in taller grass, it has had no issues, no stuttering or anything like that, as far as the power to get through a job. But we'll see sort of as I go on through the fall, and as we start to get wetter conditions to start again, how it handles that. Now, one of the other differences that you'll notice here versus the Honda mower is that your choke and your speed control here for the throttle of the motor is down here, as opposed to up on the handles there. So there's no control with the engine up on the handles here. So that was another thing I had to get used to, and something that I would honestly say that I prefer on the Honda motor or Honda mower more, is that control is up top. It has its pluses and minuses. On this one, I haven't had any issues with it, throttling down because it got caught on a tree or anything like that. Where with the Honda, having that throttle control up in this area, a lot of times, I'd be mowing around a tree or something, and a branch would hit it and slow it down, or slow the engine right down. So I haven't had any issues like that. But one of the things that I notice is that when I'm going to empty this bag on this particular mower, is that the throttle is always left in that high position. So if I'm stopping the mowing and I go to empty the bag, if I walk away to go empty the bag, then the motor itself is left revving at its highest RPM, because I just don't want to go around the front there, bend down and turn that throttle down. So with the Honda, because it's up here, every time I would stop mowing, I would just throttle down the motor to the lowest RPM, so that I could go and dump the grass and stuff. Saves a little bit of fuel, and reduces some of the noise when you're not actually mowing. So on this one, that's a consideration if you're not used to it. Not a really big deal. Like I say, it just stays revving at the highest position. You can always go around the front there and turn it down as you go to empty the bag, and I do that sometimes, but for the most part, I just leave it on the highest RPM that it's running while I go and empty the bag. So another big difference between this particular mower, and in particular the Kawasaki engine versus the Honda engine, is again something that affects me mowing in wet conditions, and that's that on the Honda engines, and it's important to note that you can get this particular mower with the Honda engine as well, but in the Kawasaki version, there's no fuel shutoff on the actual carburetor like there is on on the Honda. So what that means is there's a fuel shutoff right here, a little bit further down. But what I found is that with the Honda, because the fuel shutoff is directly on the carburetor, if I turn that off, I can actually flip the mower on its side and clean out the deck, and it can be on its side for any length of time. Flip it back over, you know, turn that switch back on and start the engine. With this particular Kawasaki engine, with the fuel shutoff, even if you turn the fuel shutoff here and flip it on its side, it tends to flood the engine, then you know, it's going to take a good 8 to 10 pulls at times to get it back started again once you get it back in sort of the right position. So another really nice feature about this particular Kawasaki motor is that they include a external spin-on automotive style oil filter. So that's really nice for the longevity of the machine, especially when you're mowing in very, very dirty, dusty conditions, just to help keep that engine working at its peak performance, especially if you tend to be more lax on your maintenance. It's really nice having an actual filter there to clean that oil and keep the machine running at its optimal. So there you have it, guys. That's my initial impressions and basically an overall, you know, initial debriefing after using this mower for the past 2 months in my lawn care business versus the past 13 years with the Honda HRC216. Overall, I have to say I'm super pleased with this mower. The cut quality is first and foremost fantastic, and that's the most important part. Haven't had any major issues with the machine. And has been more of just getting used to sort of the muscle memory of using the machine versus what I've been accustomed to with the Honda HRC216. But overall, cut quality is fantastic. Have had customers comment on how nice the cut looks with this particular mower, and with me, where I'm bagging all of my clients, the bagging performance of this particular mower is simply outstanding. So that about covers everything I wanted to cover initially in this sort of debriefing and first impressions of using this mower for the first few months. I'll keep you guys posted on this machine as I get to use it in rougher conditions, in wet weather on a regular basis, and I try out the mulching feature in the next few weeks. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you've used the Exmark commercial 21-inch X Series mower and what you liked or disliked about it, and if you've used it versus the Honda, or if you've switched back and forth. So if you like this type of Exmark manufacturing product video, I'll leave another one for you to watch up here in this corner, or I'll leave one of my other videos for you to watch up here in this corner. So that's it for this one, guys. Here's to wishing you guys all overwhelming success and freedom in your lawn care business. Bye for now.